Hello, thank you so much for coming to this session. Today I ask, accountable to whom? Centering an ethic of caring in UpRISE during the COVID crisis. My name is Dr. Heather Kennedy, and I am an instructor at the Colorado School of Public Health and a program manager of UpRISE within the Center for Public Health Practice. So a little bit about me. I started my work with youth organizing as a young person. As a high school student, I was recruited to participate in a youth movement called Get Real, and we mobilized against the tobacco industry. I was involved in that youth movement for 10 years as a young person, as a college age trainer, and then as a staff member who helped organize policy with young folks all across rural Colorado. The second picture, is a picture of a group in Las Animas, Colorado, who passed a policy to prohibit tobacco use in parks, trails, and outdoor recreational facilities. I am a stalwart advocate for ensuring young people have opportunities to experience the fullness of their power. I also started a teen board at Children's Hospital Colorado called the Mental Health Youth Action Board. During all of these experiences, I began to understand that for many, adults hold negative value orientations about young people and often lack the skills and capacity to be able to authentically partner with them. So in 2015, I started a PhD program in the Graduate School of Social Work at the University of Denver, where I studied adultism, the systematic subordination of young people by adults, and how to better support adults to engage with young people. During that same time, about in 2018, I was recruited to write a grant to reignite a youth movement in Colorado, as Get Real had ended in 2010 as a result of the fiscal crisis. I really wanted to center social justice in tobacco control work, and UpRISE was born. The top picture is a picture of me with some young folks on some marble staircase at the state capitol, where we just began meeting with elected officials. So what is UpRISE? UpRISE is Colorado's social justice youth tobacco control movement. Our vision is that Colorado's young people use their voice to create health equity, and we amplify Colorado young people's passion to shift perspectives about the tobacco industry and the root causes of nicotine use among young people. The root of our movement, or the core of our movement, is our youth coalitions. We have 22 youth coalitions across the state. We are led by a 12-member youth action board. We are guided through advice through adults, local public health agencies, and we are managed by a 4-member UpRISE staff who provides technical assistance, training, and workbooks to our coalitions, in addition to managing mini grant funds. So what is our model? We have 22 youth serving organizations and schools across Colorado who host UpRISE coalitions. Each coalition receives $5,000 to support their work yearly. The goal is to support youth serving organizations who already serve young people who are on the margins and who are targeted by the tobacco industry. Those $5,000, of those $5,000 that coalitions receive, $3,800 is given to the young people to budget in ways that will help them incentivize their participation. $1,200, pardon me, is for the adult facilitator. There are 5 to 25 young people in each coalition, and coalitions receive intensive training, workbooks, and coaching from our UpRISE staff. So what do youth coalitions do? Youth coalitions learn about their individual identities and their relationship to power and privilege or experiences of cumulative disadvantage. They talk about how power is organized in the US and about the social determinants and structural determinants of health. They learn about the primary predictors of tobacco use among young people in Colorado. They select one of those predictors and conduct a root cause analysis of that predictor. They make meaning out of the root cause by creating art, whether that's photo voice or story circles or poetry. They collect evidence, and we support them by collecting evidence around the best and proven policies to address their root cause, and they meet with decision makers and advocate for change. So it's a 3-year movement funded by the state health department. And we, in phase 1, identify root causes of nicotine use and make meaning out of those root causes with art. In phase 2, we understand our decision-making landscape, who has the power to change the issues that we identified, and we meet with our decision maker at the end of year 2. And then in year 3, we organize for transformative social change. Transformative in this case means not only do we change a policy or practice, but we change in hopes the hearts and minds of adults in our community to see young people more favorably. So the root causes that coalitions identified are listed on the screen. Due to time constraints, I'm not going to have time to go through them, but I encourage you to think about the ways in which these might lead young folks to use nicotine. Today, the bulk of the presentation is to talk about how in UpRISE during the crisis period of COVID centered an ethic of caring. I call the crisis period of COVID for our movement from March to June 2020. This is a time when we decentered our tobacco control work and centered an ethic of caring, relationships, meeting young people's basic needs, meeting young people's needs for connection, and supporting their well-being and mental health. So we met young people's basic needs by providing them food in times when they experienced hunger. We dropped, in many coalitions, dropped off groceries for young people because they lacked transportation to be able to access healthy food options. And their rural settings, it's more difficult. In rural settings, there's not as many grocery stores, walkable distance. We also provided young people money for completing online training so that they could still have access to the financial incentives of participating in UpRISE and advance their capacity for the work. We sent out care packages to community members. So coalitions, this is not UpRISE staff, but we sort of sanctioned the use of funds for this purpose. So we collected food and other arts items and sent those either to the broader community using UpRISE gear, which is highlighted in the center picture, or specifically to UpRISE coalitions who articulated needing ways to cope. We also engaged in a variety of different types of virtual meetings, so mostly through Zoom, but also through Discord, Google Meets and Hangouts, Skype, whatever way young people wanted to connect. We created art during an art night. This is an example from the YASPA Coalition. And then on the right, you can see a picture of young people on Zoom. And it's just about checking in with each other, having fun, playing Among Us, playing Jackbox games, which is a suite of online games that folks can play. So figuring out what young people like to do, whether it's create music or program, read books together, whatever it is, finding out what those things are and connecting with them. We also found other ways of caring during the pandemic. And in this picture to the left, it's a picture in Silverton, Colorado, and they identified food scarcity as a major concern. They only have one very small grocery store, and because of the pandemic, much of the supply was cut off. So they built a community garden with funds from UpRISE. You can see in the picture here, young people are masked and building a wall, a retaining wall for their garden. We also collaborated with other youth-serving organizations across our state to host a Closing the Gap virtual town hall for young people and adults. About 20 legislators, state legislators, and 80 young people attended this virtual event where we talked about racism, impact of COVID on education, and ways to integrate youth voices into policymaking. We also stepped up our social media, particularly in response to racism in the US and the sort of racial justice movement that was ignited after the brutal murder of George Floyd. So our RISE series, or Resist, Inform, Step Up, and Empower series went all summer long and encouraged folks to act, learn more about the ways in which racism manifests in our laws and policies in the United States, and how to empower others to be engaged in this movement. You can check out our social media on Instagram or on Facebook at UpRISE Youth Movement. And also we have a website at upriseyouthmovement.org. Pardon me. We developed some virtual trainings so that we could take our time and ensure that folks were really deepening their practice in this moment where everything was virtual. So we developed a virtual youth engagement training, a training around recruiting and retaining a youth board, and how to address dilemmas in youth work practice. These trainings can all be found on our website, upriseyouthmovement.org/adult trainings. I just want to close today with a poem that I wrote that really exemplifies how I feel about this work and how I find the importance of an ethic of caring, ways we can disrupt white supremacy, both in the academy and in the community. It's called On Being the Youth Worker, and this will close us out today. This work is one of heart, stress, and pride. It's meetings where nothing happens and meetings where we take great strides. We meet outside and in perpetual Zooms. It's supporting their voice so it can bloom. An ethic of caring extends beyond the academy. It's not about recognition. Your name will not appear on the marquee. Hundreds of photos of other people's children on your phone is driving in traffic to pick them up from their broken home. Tell them they don't have to wait. They can make a difference now. It's about making sure their project is complete somehow. Not a unidirectional relationship. It's about reciprocity, a jazz improvisation mixed with humble curiosity. Doing art nights, Among Us, and virtual charades is thinking about their relationships, soccer tournaments, and grades. They'll need to know that you'll be here today and tomorrow. It's texting, Snapchatting, and calling them in times of sorrow. You gotta listen without judgment, not make suggestions. It's the before the meeting, the after, checking in, asking questions. Speaking up for them in meetings, especially when they're not with you, is advocating for them in everything you do. Accountable to whom, I ask. That's your decision. Being a youth worker, it's more than a position. Thank you so much. I apologize for not being able to be here with you, but I'm eager to connect with you and talk more about UpRISE. You can visit our website, or you can contact me at heather.kennedy@cuanschutz.edu. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of this session and the rest of the conference.